Hare Krishna, Namaste, Chapter 18, which is entitled as Sannyasa Yoga. Sloka 16. Tatraivaṁ sati kartāram ātmānaṁ kevalaṁ tuyah paśyaty akṛta-buddhitvān na sa paśyati durmatiḥ. From the 14th and 15th slokas, we learned that for a person to perform any act through his body, speech or mind, whether it is approved by the scriptures or not, there are 5 factors which are involved to make that action take place. One should understand this. Those who doesn't understand this thinks that they don't need any help from anyone and think themselves to be the only doer are not considered very intelligent. This is what is explained in this 16th sloka. Let's understand the meaning of the sloka. Evam sati. Thus, when the self becomes the doer, the agent, with the permission of the Lord, tatra, regarding that act, kevalaṁ ātmānaṁ, only the self, kartāram, as the doer, as the worker, the agent, tu, he who, paśyati, sees, durmatiḥ, foolish, because he has perverted intellect. He doesn't have a proper intelligence. Saha, he, akṛta-buddhitvān, not having a clear understanding, being unintelligent, na paśyati, does not see the agent. Translation: therefore, one who thinks himself the only doer, not considering the 5 factors, is certainly not very intelligent and cannot see things as they are. When I am the doer, is it not wrong to think that I am not the doer? Is it not considered that I am in delusion? Delusion is that which covers our actual knowledge or intelligence, thinking oneself to be something else. In this case, when I am doing an activity and by thinking that I am not doing that activity, is it not delusion? Krishna says, no, not at all, Arjuna, it is not. And let me explain to you now. One who sees doesn't see if he thinks himself to be the doer. Meaning, one who sees himself to be the only doer does not actually see the truth that there are other 4 are involved in this process, whereas one who sees that he is not the only doer is a real seer. He sees the truth that he is not independent doer. I certainly need help of other 3, and also I need the Lord who is above me to give his sanction and to engage me in my activity. It is Krishna who grants him the required resources and gives permission and directs him to perform an act. Without grasping this fact, if one who thinks that he has gathered all the required resources by himself and does everything with his own ability without requiring anyone's help, such a person has no clear understanding at all. He rather has a contrary knowledge about his own self. If one thinks that he is doing by himself, that means he is not understanding that he is different from the body, different from the senses, different from the prana. He thinks everything together is what he is. He is non-different from the body, senses and prana. Therefore, this person thinks he is the doer. We should know by now that Atma is Anu, minute entity. It has jnana, knowledge. Therefore, it has the capacity to cognize things, then desire for things, and then achieve that thing which it cognized and desired by performing some action. This ability is given to Jivatma, all the Jivatmas, as its nature, Swabhavika, by the Lord Himself. This can be done by the Jivatma even without having a body in the spiritual world, after attaining Mukti. But when the Jivatma is in its conditioned state in this world, it cannot function independently without anyone's help. It has to be dependent on its body, senses as tools. They are must for Jivatma to perform any action, to exercise those ability of knowing the object, desiring the object, obtaining the object. Also, the Lord has given some ability to the body and the senses by which they can perform their action to help the Jivatma to fulfill its desire, and that action to be fructified, it requires the Lord's sanction. If there is no sanction given by the Lord, then that action may get interrupted by various reasons. We already mentioned in one of the earlier session that there are various opinions on this topic. In Adhya Pravrti, Dvitiya Pravrti, Tritiya Pravrti, Lord stays as Udhasina when a bad choice has been made by Jivatma. The reason is because otherwise the Lord will take responsibility, has to take the responsibility for leading one into wrong direction. Whereas the other idea is that irrespective of whether it's a good action or bad action that Jivatma prefers to do, Lord does get involved, giving sanctions. But both the opinions agrees that Jivatma is the karta. Both agrees that Lord has his influence over the Jivatma, that it is Jivatma is dependent on the Lord. The only difference is, does he stay neutral or does he place his role as Anumanta, meaning approver? But either case, we should know that the Lord does not do things on his own. He is completely depending on the Jivatma's action, on the Jivatma's past karmas. So let's keep this in our mind. One may ask a question, at what point should I give up my action, my attempts? Say I've been trying to do some work and for some reason I keep failing. At what point should I end my try? I also hear that we should never give up in anything. Failures are lessons that we learn towards our success. So how do I understand what is right? There are 3 checkpoints we need to run through to make sure if we should continue our attempts or give up. First thing for sure we need to know is, do we have the required skills and tools to perform this activity? Number 2, during the tasks, during the activity as we are engaged, has my goal remained same as I started earlier, initiated this action, or it is changed now over the period of the time? If my goal is still same, then we can continue. And lastly and most importantly, do I have the blessings of Vaishnavas, the devotees, do I have the blessings of the Supreme Lord Krishna? Which means the activity should be approved by the scriptures. As long as these below three criteria are satisfied, one should not give up their attempt, their services. If any of these are not met, then we better don't proceed further. If we don't have the sanction, blessings of the Lord, then our task may be interrupted. So the person who knows that I am not the only doer, I am doing this because of the Lord's mercy, the Lord makes sure that the upakaranam, the required tools, like the body and senses, are functioning properly so that the Atma, Jivatma, can perform its activities. Those who understood the position of Atma truly knows that he is fully dependent on Lord's mercy. He is not independent. My knowledge is by his mercy and order. My body and senses are his mercy and order. By the influence of my karma and vasana, when I perform an action, the Lord keeps my body in a functional state, make sure my effort is not obstructed, make sure I go in the right path. He stays with me and makes sure I complete my task and attain my end result. So I am not at all independent in any stages of my action in my life. I am fully dependent on the Supreme Lord, right from the start to the end of that particular activity. And right from the start to the end, He is with me to make sure I complete my task successfully. Therefore, He is the doer, and I am a dependent doer. And this is how correctly understood by those who knows about Atma. But those who doesn't understand this are ajnanis, unintelligent person, akṛta-buddhitvān. He thinks he is the doer. He doesn't understand he's not the doer. In other words, he's not an independent doer. It is the Lord who has given him certain ability and tools for him to perform his action. He doesn't have this knowledge. Let's clearly understand this point, that whatever action that we perform, it is in reality done by the Lord alone. But He doesn't do it whimsically on His own choice. He never does that. How are we so sure that He doesn't do things on His own? Or, in other words, on what basis He does things? Let's understand that in our next session. Namaste. Hare Krishna.